Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a mall to grab one thing and then looked at your phone an hour later and thought, how am I still here? That experience isn't random. It's not a lack of discipline, and it's not because you got distracted. It's because shopping malls are intentionally designed to alter human behavior. Today, I want to explain why people behave the way they do inside malls and how mall design manipulates movement, attention, and time perception. This is retail anthropology, the study of how retail environments shape human behavior. A modern shopping mall is one of the most controlled public environments humans regularly enter. Environmental psychologists have long shown that humans rely on external cues like light, sound, temperature, and time indicators to regulate behavior. Malls intentionally remove many of those cues. You'll notice very few clocks, limited exterior windows, artificial daylight through skylights, and constant temperature year-round. This concept is borrowed directly from casino design. In fact, Bill Friedman, a former gaming executive and author of Designing Casinos to Dominate the Competition, openly documented how removing clocks and windows increases dwell time. Retail developers adopted similar principles decades ago. When the environment feels safe, predictable, comfortable, the brain reduces urgency. You're no longer trying to complete a task. You're available to explore. Multiple pedestrian behavior studies, including research from the Journal of Environmental Psychology, shows that walking speed decreases in enclosed retail environments. Why? Because the brain shifts modes. On a city street, your brain's in navigation mode. Let's avoid collision. Gotta watch traffic. We need to reach a destination. In the mall, there's no cars, no weather, no immediate threats. Instead, the brain enters visual scanning mode. Your eyes constantly process storefronts, lighting changes, reflection, movement, and signage. Scanning requires cognitive bandwidth, and when cognition increases, walking speed decreases. This is not accidental. Retail sales are strongly correlated with exposure time, not just foot traffic. Slower movement equals more impressions. More impressions equal higher probability of conversion. There's a term in retail design called the Gruen transfer. It's named after Victor Gruen, the architect who designed America's first enclosed shopping malls in the 1950s. The Gruen transfer describes the moment when a shopper loses their original intention. They become disoriented. They shift from goal-oriented behavior to browsing behavior. Malls trigger this intentionally. How? Corridors curve instead of running straight. Intersections reveal new visual stimuli. Escalators rotate direction. Multi-level atriums disrupt mental mapping. Humans are excellent at navigating grids, but malls are not grids. Once spatial certainty breaks down, the brain stops navigating and starts exploring. And browsing is where unplanned spending happened. Ironically, Victor Gruen later hated what malls became because this manipulation was never part of his original vision. Time perception is heavily influenced by natural light cycles and external reference points. In environments where those are removed, humans consistently underestimate time spent. This has been demonstrated in studies on airports, on casinos, in retail environments. Malls use consistent lighting temperatures and avoid visual cues that suggest late or early. It feels perpetually midday. The result? People stay longer than intended without realizing it. Have you ever noticed how mall exits are rarely obvious? They're often offset from main sight lines. They're often visually understated. They're often behind you, not ahead of you. That's deliberate. Wayfinding studies show that clear exit visibility increases early departure behavior. Malls don't hide exits, but they don't highlight them either. Leaving is meant to feel incidental, not intentional. Once you understand this, malls stop feeling accidental. You start seeing them as behavioral systems, not collection of stores. But everything we talked so far explains how malls influence individual behavior. Let's zoom out. Because malls aren't designed for individuals. They're designed to manage groups of people simultaneously. And that's what determines whether a mall thrives or whether a mall dies. Anchor stores are one of the most misunderstood elements in mall design. Anchors are rarely about rent. In fact, many anchors historically paid below market rent or percentage rent, even free rent. Why? Because anchors are traffic engines. They're intentionally spaced apart, or spaced far apart, to force circulation. Retail studies dating back to the 70s show that inline tenant sales increased with forced exposure, not proximity to entrances. You enter for the anchor. You walk past dozens of stores to reach it. The inconvenience is the strategy. Food courts aren't just amenities. They're time extension tools. Eating accomplishes three things behaviorally. It restores energy, it reduces decision fatigue, and it encourages social clustering. Research in consumer psychology shows that decision fatigue reduces spending, but food resets cognitive capacity. That's why food courts are often placed in the mid-mall or on upper levels or near natural light. After people eat, they don't leave. They re-enter browsing mode. Malls are optimized for group persistence. Most shoppers aren't alone. They're often with their kids, their partners, their friends, their elderly parents. If one person becomes uncomfortable, just one, the entire group will leave. That's why malls carefully place seating near the restroom, benches outside of fitting rooms, and lounge zones in the common areas near anchors. They're not conveniences, they're retention tools. Healthy malls support multiple social groups at the same time. Retail sociologists often refer to this as tribal coexistence. Teenagers seek visibility and social signaling. Parents need strollers, space, rest. Seniors prefer predictable walking loops and seating. When a mall fails to balance these groups, it fails socially. And social failure always precedes financial failure. Dead malls almost always share the same behavioral flaws: broken walking loops, dark interiors, dead-end anchors, straight, uninspiring corridors, and no social nodes. Developers often try to fix these malls by changing tenants. But the problem isn't always leasing. Sometimes it's behavior, and you can't lease your way out of a broken circulation system. Great malls don't just lease space, they choreograph behavior. Once you understand retail anthropology, you stop asking, what tenants should go here? You start asking, how do people move? How do they rest? How do they gather? How do they decide here? That shift changes how you think about deals, how you redevelop assets, and how you evaluate risk in retail real estate. And that's why malls that understand behavior survive, and the ones that don't, they disappear.